that brings about results. We accomplish something. We have an ideal in our mind, and we go out, and that ideal becomes reality. It bears fruit. So if we say, be fruitful, we mean to have some results, something that come out of our life that has meaning and purpose. Now, let's say, early in the morning, alarm clock goes off. I hear it, right? And my mind says, uh-oh, time to get up. But my hand, almost by its own volition, reaches over, hits that alarm clock off the table, into the wall, destroying it, and I get another 3-4 hours of sleep. Am I going to have a fruitful day? Probably not. The fruit of my day will probably be being fired by my boss because I didn't accomplish anything. There's a problem here. My mind had an idea it should get up, but my body dominated my mind, kept me in bed, and my day was fruitless. Okay? All right, let's say, that's another example, all right? It's a man laying in bed. Alarm clock goes off. Okay? He jumps out of bed. Da-da, puts on his clothes, takes a shower, goes out, goes down the street, walks to a bank. Give me your dough. Is he going to have a fruitful day? I don't think so. He might get a little money in the short run, but it's going to spend a long time thinking about how fruitful that really was once they catch him and put him in prison. Okay? So, yeah, his mind dominated his body, but there was a problem. He had the wrong idea about what to do. So in order to be fruitful, first of all, our mind has to receive from God an idea. What we're supposed to do with our life. Fortunately, God doesn't keep that a secret. Okay? We want to know what to do with our life. We can read God's words. We can ask people that we feel are close to God. We can go to church. We can pray. Many ways we can discover God's will. It's not a secret. Okay? And as we develop our relationship with God through study and prayer and doing good things, our mind begins to understand what it's all about. Then, that's good. But then the next step is our mind has to get that old body to go out and do something. My body likes to eat, sleep, things like that. You know, my body does not like to wake up in the morning. My body does not like to do difficult things. My body really has its own idea of what to do, and it's not very fruitful. So my mind needs to dominate my body, take control over it, and get that body to go and do something. Okay? And the body, of course, is also receiving food and things from God. And so this body, mind dominated by the body, working together can produce beautiful fruit. I can come up with some result from my day. If we live like this throughout our entire life, uh-oh, they're starting to leave. If we live like this throughout our entire life, we create an ideal, beautiful life. If everything I did, my mind was dominated by God, led my body to do good, I would be an ideal person. Don't you think? Isn't that really how we should be? When we look at a great person in history, one of the great saints or prophets of history, don't we look and we see, yeah, that guy followed God and did something about it, right? And became an ideal person. So this is the first thing of the 3 blessings is we gotta do this. Number 1. Okay, now, that's great. Number 2, multiply. Okay? All right, multiply. Well, you know, I studied multiplication in 3rd grade. Okay? But that's not the right kind of multiplication. God's 3 blessings, everything centers on God. Without God, it couldn't be God's 3 blessings. It would be the godless 3 blessings. The God-free 3 blessings. So, centering on God. Let's imagine what would happen if this ideal person here, in this case is an ideal man. And the ideal man, you know, as we see, has this relationship. Let's say we just encapsulate this whole relationship here, and we put it right here. Boom. All right? Okay? And then we get another one of these, slightly different, and we put it right there. Okay? This ideal woman. Okay? All right. Now we got something happening here. Okay? Let's say these ideal women, man and ideal woman, happen to become acquainted and begin to form a relationship. get married, that's a very important part, have a family, they could raise their children wonderfully. They could show an example of really what it means to be a son or daughter of God. And their children would be able to grow up into really excellent children, and they would form an ideal family. Right? Don't you think so?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to just take a minute. I know, okay, I'm running a little short of time here, but I'll just take a minute to talk about this a little bit. Is the family really doing all that well in America today?
No.
No, I don't think so. Divorce is around 50%. My kids actually went to a church school up in the Bay Area, church school. And our church doesn't have that much divorce, because we believe these things. Then we moved down to San Diego. She went to the public school. And one of the most shocking things for my children was how few of their friends had a father and a mother living at home. So many different problems and difficulties. The parents would bring, mom, they'd live with their mom, and mom would bring home their boyfriend or girlfriend. And I thought, that must be weird for a child to, be at home with your mom, and your mom brings home her boyfriend. That seems very strange to me. I can see, okay, maybe after a period of time, by the way, honey, me and Joe are going to get married, and then they get married, and then they start living together. That's a little bit better, because, but really have a lot of problems with our family. Let's examine this actually, what breaks down in modern families? What causes the problems of divorce, family breakdown? Well, first of all, I think the first problem with modern families is that this is often not there. They don't fulfill this one. Therefore, the husband doesn't really understand what it means to be a true man. The woman doesn't understand what it means to be a true woman. And also, they're seeing each other because they're not seeing each other with God. The man is seeing the woman, what am I going to get from her? The woman seeing the man, what am I going to get from him? And instead of loving unconditionally as God does, they begin to love based on getting something back. In every marriage relationship, there's a point where you have to give more than you take. And if your motivation for marriage is just to receive, that person fulfills my needs and so I want to be with them, if those needs at some point aren't fulfilled, you might start contemplating divorce. And I think that this is a problem a lot in modern families. Instead, if we have a family like this, even in the difficult times, now, it's easy when everything's going fine. There's a lot of love and warmth. Sorry, I know, people are looking at the clock. There's a lot of love and warmth many times in a relationship, but there's always those difficult times. Your partner always has something wrong. Your husband always does something like leave his socks on the floor, or doesn't make enough money, or isn't ambitious enough, and your wife doesn't cook well enough, or she nags you too much, or there's always something that's difficult, because we're human beings, we're unique. So at that point, if I'm looking at her trying to see how she satisfies my desires, I'm not happy. And it feels like the relationship's not fulfilling its purpose. But let's say I'm this kind of man, that I'm going to see my wife not only this way, but because I can see God, I can see how God sees my wife. And I can see her original value and meaning, which is far beyond my selfish desire to get something from her or have her satisfy my needs. I can see her as God sees her. And also, I can see this relationship in terms of what God wants for my family, what God wants for my marriage, which transcends my desire to fulfill my needs at the moment. I can forgive her for not washing the dishes for 3 days straight. She can forgive me for leaving the toilet seat up and leaving my underwear everywhere. Because there's something more deep in our relationship than just that. So then, this is really what we're supposed to be. This is how family's supposed to be. We all have I have a relationship with God, with my wife, with my children. She does too. It's a relationship, a dynamic, beautiful, flowing relationship from all directions.